Excuse me. Good morning, Dan and Amy. And as we've had Comrade Bernie's Iowa apparatchik extolling the virtues of gulags this week, thanks to the undercover work of Project Veritas, James O'Keefe, his team.
Oh my God. Just when you think it couldn't get more progressive. Totalitarian.
Yeah. The gulags to re-educate people, to de-Trumpify them after dear leader Bernie's victory in November. Remarkable that somebody who was lauding the Cuban economy 30 years ago as better than the United States, singing the praises of the Soviet Union 30 years ago.
He loved their train system. He loved the chandeliers and the
puppet shows.
Platforms, yeah.
Puppet shows, very affordable. On Soviet soil, could be a leading contender for the Democrat Socialist nomination for president, but it's real. It's happening. And, of course, we've talked about the survey research showing how attractive words like socialism, even communism, are to millennials and younger, even those younger than millennials who are on college campuses right now. It calls to mind Alexander Solzhenitsyn, of course, Gulag Archipelago, and what he wrote about 35 years ago, about the time Bernie was jaunting off to the Soviet Union with Jane for their honeymoon. Solzhenitsyn, who ironically was in exile from the Soviet Union in the 80s in Vermont. Apparently, Bernie and Alexander didn't cross paths. He wrote, "If I were asked today to formulate as concisely as possible the main cause of the ruinous revolution that swallowed up some 60 million of our people, I could not put it more accurately than to repeat, men have forgotten God. That's why all of this happened." Talking about the communist repression during the life of the Soviet Union in the 20th century. Well, this certainly brings to mind Venezuela, which is an example that none of the Democrat socialists in America want to talk about. But it's very real, and it has appeal in certain quarters on the left, we know, because a contingent of the Chicago Teachers Union went down to Caracas to praise the school system under Maduro in Venezuela, incredibly. And then they came back here and were rewarded with a pay raise the city of Chicago can't afford. But no, of course, nothing like what happened in the Soviet Union, nothing like happening in Venezuela could happen here, right? Well,
no one knows what's happening in Venezuela but a Venezuelan.
And we've talked to Venezuelans on the ground before, and we're pleased to be joined by two more who are exiles of Venezuela, Jorge Galicia and Andres Guillarte, are touring college campuses in America, trying to disabuse college students of the notion that socialism will usher in some utopian wonderland. Andres, Jorge, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having us, Dan and Amy.
Hello, good morning. Thank you.
Jorge here.
Good morning. So whoever wants to start, Andres, why don't we start with you? Tell us about, you guys are both in your mid-20s, so you're millennials. Tell us about what you're conveying to students on college campuses in America about what you know about your home of Venezuela.
Sure. Well, actually, the message we're trying to give these students is a warning message. It's a warning message that those policies that they hear from some politicians, are the same policies that our society used to hear in the mid-'80s and in the '90s, even before Chavez came to power. Because all Venezuelan problem is not just about Chavez, it's even before him. So we're trying to give them a warning that all this news they see about Venezuela, all the violence, that's just the conclusion of a whole story that started with some politicians trying to start giving free stuff to people. And that's what we're trying to give to the students.
Jorge, I want to ask you what happened. I mean, you were born and raised in Venezuela, and just tell me how your country changed.
Well, what happened is easy. I think we as a country started to spend much more than we were actually able to afford.
Hmm.
Politicians back in the 70s. I think the 70s is the decade where all of our troubles as a society began. Because in that decade, thanks to to big oil revenue that the government was receiving thanks to the oil market, they started to create a lot of social programs designed to allegedly help the poor, right? Free healthcare, free college tuition, free housing, free whatever. All of that was great for a moment because Venezuela had money to spend, but eventually we run out of money, and that's when the problems began. All of those programs were not sustainable, and when politicians tried to to fix the system by making cuts to the budget, the people were already really dependent on all of these social programs. So to fix the budget was literally impossible.
Yeah,
It
but
was a
what
political,
hardships did you face? What?
Well, because people was so dependent, when politicians tried at least at the end of the 80s to cut the budget, people went out to the streets like crazy to start rioting against the government. A lot of looting. So it was literally impossible for us to fix the budget, and because of that, we ended up electing Hugo Chavez because he was the only one promising more socialism and more hardcore leftist ideas. And I think this is important because a lot of people from the left here say, well, you know what? In Venezuela, the Venezuelan example is not a good one because we are proposing, a welfare state. We're not proposing a hardcore socialism like the one they have in Venezuela. But what they're not realizing is that welfare state, big welfare state, is precisely what got us into hardcore socialism afterwards. So people have to take care about the budget here in America because I just read that the debt here it already surpassed the 23 trillion, and if you don't control that, you will probably end up in a really bad economic situation.
Yeah, it's interesting you point out how there's an evolution to this, right? It happened gradually over the course of several generations, and then suddenly under Chavez and now Maduro, and it was the unwillingness to live within your means and instead to believe beautiful lies that were told by politicians. I just want you to talk to how socialism was marketed in Venezuela and the similarities between some of the rhetoric you heard from politicians there and what you're hearing from politicians in America.
Sure. One of the key similarities will be like when Chavez got to power, he never called himself a socialist. He said he was a humanist. But as soon as he got to power, like 1 year later, he started this agenda about 21st century socialism, and he started with something that you hear here in America, like we need to empower the poor. Being rich is bad. This kind of stuff. And since Venezuela was not going through a really good moment, and there was a lot of population living in poverty, well, China was just trying to speak to those people. And when that's one of the problems with the government and the politicians is that it's really easy when you make a campaign and just speaking like we're going to help poor people, we're going to start giving free stuff, we're going to attack the rich because they're the problems of society. And a lot of people like to hear that kind of message, and that was one of the key factors that helped the socialism get spread in the country, and also because Chavez was a really charismatic person in the moment.
And so, what's the sense from Venezuelan families now about the bill of goods they were clearly sold? Do you think there is a recognition of the road to perdition that they were led down?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the last time I read some polls in the ground in Venezuela, I heard more than 80% of the society already rejects the the very same word of socialism. Nobody wants to talk about socialism anymore. They want people in Venezuela already want one market. They don't want free stuff anymore because they know it is an impossibility. Actually, you know what's funny? Every time, in the past when the government announced, that they wanted to rise the minimum wage, everybody started to celebrate because they thought that was a good idea. Now everybody knows for a fact that everybody, even the poorest section of the society, they don't like when the government say that they will rise the minimum wage because they know for a fact that they will start losing jobs, that they will get fired, that the prices will start getting even higher than whatever it is today. So I really believe that we have learned our lessons, but we needed to do that through the hard way. My expectations to America is that I hope that you are mature enough societies so you can learn from other people's experience, so you don't have to go through any of the hard results that we needed to in order to understand what socialism is about, right?
So how are you guys being received on college campuses here? How are the students reacting to what you have to say?
Well, so far it's more positive than anything situation because our message. I mean, we speak from a personal perspective. I mean, we show. I just have one year here, and Jorge has a year and a half. So we have a really fresh perspective of what is living under socialism hell. So I mean, families there. My whole family is in Venezuela. So we give this perspective, this message, this real experience over there. And, there's you can't disagree with what we're saying. We know what we're talking about. So the only disagreement we find in these college campuses is it's like, okay, everything that is going on in Venezuela is horrible, but that's not going to happen here in the U.S. And some politicians that are not trying to get the Venezuelan model, they're trying the Nordic model. Like, for example, that's what Bernie says, that he doesn't want that socialism. He wants the Nordic socialism. And therefore, we have to make researches about the Nordic models in order to answer these questions. And the more common question, the more common answer is in the Nordic countries there is no socialism. There is actually capitalism. And what happened in Venezuela is real socialism. And the key similarity is that before everything happened in Venezuela, everyone said that we're not going to be like Cuba, and we end up being worse than Cuba. So when everyone starts saying that they're not going to be like Venezuela, that's like the wrong path because you're going to end up worse than Venezuela.
Well, right. I mean, why if you're pursuing the same policies, Bernie Sanders, government takeover of healthcare, government for free college, free this, free that, entitlement this, entitlement that. If you're going to pursue the exact same policies and set up the same systems that were set up in Cuba and Venezuela, why would it turn out any different?
Yeah, exactly, and that's what is most war. I worry a lot when I see all of these proposals from the Democratic field. Medicare for all, college free for all, expand Social Security. I mean, both political parties should be discussing how to lower the levels of debt and the levels of public spending. They are already way too high. How are you going to afford even more Social Security, more Medicare, more free things? That is not sustainable. We should be discussing the other way around. How do we cut the budget? Because nobody in America seems to be caring about this anymore, and sadly, not even the Republican Party anymore. I mean, we just had a whole Congress controlled by the Republicans, and the presidency, of course, in hands of Trump, and the deficit is still growing. So what's going on here?
Yeah, that's a fair point.
That's really sad,
Well, and one other parallel. I mean, that's a salient point. One other parallel I just wanted to get to was nationalizing of industry. Hugo Chavez nationalizing the oil sector and destroying the lifeblood of the Venezuelan economy, and what we have going on here with the proposals for the Green New Deal to deindustrialize the American economy and transform our energy sector.
Yeah, that was and still is one of the key factors that led to this disaster in Venezuela. because and you have to go back to the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s because the national debt at that moment was just growing and growing and growing, and the government started, to print money to take money from somewhere, and that created inflation. But Chavez went even farther, and he started nationalizing a lot of industries. So, and not just industry, even stores. I mean, he just wanted to take everything he could to gain more money. And the thing is that eventually all these industries and businesses that they nationalized, they all went to bankruptcy because they don't know how to take this industry to actually make profit. So that is one of the key factors that destroyed the whole industrial complex of Venezuela. And you're right, that's one of the key similarities here, because eventually when the government wants to, finance everything and give a lot of stuff to everyone, they have to get the money from somewhere. And it seems like pockets of the citizens is not enough. So they want to get businesses and they want to get a lot of industries. And eventually, everything just falls apart.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. Jorge Galicia, Andres Gallarte. These are two Venezuelan young men that are traveling to college campuses around America, telling the story about Venezuela as a cautionary tale. Appreciate what you're doing. Good luck on the college campuses, and thank you for joining us.
Oh, no, thank you so much for the invitation.
Okay. And they joined us both on our turnkey.pro answer line.
If you're talking about it, Dan and Amy are talking about it. It's Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Hi, this is Dan Frio with the Mortgage Update. Your lifelong dream has always been to buy your own home. So what's your first step? Do you call your local bank, go online and apply at one of the internet companies, or have your realtor refer you to a company they work with? What if I said none of the above? Why? Your local bank might not offer the program that's best for your situation. The online companies, you input your information and hope they get back to you. And you also put all your life history out on the web. Your realtor's lender, their focus is on the sale, not getting you the best rate and program. So what's your best option? Dan Frio. Why? I work for you, not the bank. I shop your loan to over 21 different mortgage lenders that get you the best rate and program that fits your needs. So let's make your dream a reality. Call me today, 844-775-LOAN. That's 844-775-LOAN. Or reach me on the web at WIA.